So here at First Broad Street, we're all about helping people follow Jesus by loving God, growing together, and reaching out. And so at this State of the Church address, we wanted to highlight some of the celebrations that we've found since the last State of the Church address. So Harrison, how have we been celebrating in our Loving God area?
And so right now, what's happening on the third floor of the Wesley Wing is a new student ministry service called AMP. And it is reaching from grade 6 through grade 12, through seniors in high school. And it is doing an amazing job. It is growing. It is booming. Especially our middle school age is just absolutely taken off. And just huge things are happening under the leadership of John Rowe, who you all know is a newer staff member who's been here since May. And so it's just been a really great thing. And then also, one other thing that I would like to mention is, was anybody here at Jingle Jam that took place? Yeah, so several of you are here at Jingle Jam, and it was a new type of deal that we did. It was on a Thursday night right as soon as kids got out of school for Christmas break. And it was really just family-focused, a great time of worship, a great high energy, a lot of fun, a lot of funny. And so if you all know Lucas Higgins, and Hannah really led that and did an amazing job with that. And so it was just, and Amanda, did all the behind the scenes. Yeah. And
I won't do it again.
And so it was just an amazing time, and it's something that we hope to continue to be able to do. And then lastly, who all was here for Christmas Eve service?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just had an amazing Christmas Eve. It was definitely, it was my first Christmas Eve here and Amanda's first Christmas Eve here, but it went so well. And Mike's going to be talking to you a little bit about some miracles that happened around those services. But we were just able this year, and especially over these past 4 months, been able to worship God in really profound ways, gain a lot of energy around things, and we just have such a bright future for what we're going to be able to do together as a congregation concerning loving God together.
Great. And I tell Lucas this all the time. I said, it's so freeing as a pastor to be in worship and actually be able to worship. Because a lot of times you're so thinking about all the things that are going on, but when worship is done so well like we do it here, you really can get into that spirit of worship. And so it's been a blessing for me to see how we've done that over the last 6 months since we've been here. We also are about growing together, and we're doing that in many different ways as well. Do you want to share a little bit about our age-level ministries and how we're growing together through those?
Yeah, so how many of you either have kids or grandkids or nieces or nephews that are participating in our preschool or children or student ministries?
Yeah.
So if you have talked to them recently, you know that we have implemented a new curriculum called Orange. And Orange has been so helpful in so many different ways, and we've implemented it where it covers from birth all the way through graduation. And it's such a great type of curriculum that allows parents to continue the discipleship process long after the child leaves or the student leaves the church. It's a way for parents to get involved. It's a way for us to really focus on the family as a whole from all ages. And it's allowed us to be really creative in a lot of the ways that we're able to approach children's ministry, preschool ministry, and student ministry. And so that's something that we're continuing to do our best to implement at great levels. And it's created so much energy with these age-level ministries that we think we're going to be able to just continue to grow those ministries in great and powerful ways in the coming months.
Our children and students are bringing their parents and their grandparents to church because they want to come to our programs, which is awesome. It's great. Yeah, we also have been doing a lot in our Sunday school classes, have always been thriving, but small groups are taking off. We started some new ones. We have a basketball team that's been playing, and they have some spiritual disciplines they practice together. In addition, our hiking club. And then we've also started some new young adult small groups. And just from rough counting, we have almost 60 young adults, ages 18 to 40, that are involved in some kind of small group. We know we have more, that we need to develop more of those, but that's very encouraging that these young adults are meeting on a weekly basis to grow together spiritually and to grow closer to God.
And one other thing that I would like to mention around this idea of growing together, I think if you were to talk to John Wilson tonight, he would tell you that older adult ministry, the future here is really bright. We are working on a lot of different things with an older adult, baby boomer, and beyond strategy that will allow us to really implement and really strategically be able to perform older adult ministry here. And that's a new way of doing things around here. And so we're really excited about that. I think John is really excited about that, has given a lot of energy to that. And then also, if you were here for the Over 70s luncheon, so me and Amanda helped serve during that, but we had over 200 participants. It was one of the amazing highlights of the year. And so Mandy Metzger and John Wilson worked tirelessly to make that happen. And it was just an amazing time. I think everyone had a wonderful time together. And so I just would really like to implore that I think the future of older adult ministry here is really bright, that the best years are ahead of us and not behind us with that as we're strategically focusing on that.
Yeah. Great. And so, Harrison, how are we reaching out? What can we celebrate that we've been reaching out?
And so there's so much. Everybody knows we do this pretty well here, and we have such a focus on it. We have such a passion around it. And if you were to talk to Danny or Susie, they would be able to give you ministry after ministry after ministry of how we are changing the lives of people, not only here in Kingsport, but around the world. But we've been able to, over the past couple of years, really do some neat and great things. And so we have Academic Village, which is downtown. It's reaching several thousand students, and we were able to just right before Christmas break, during their finals week, go there and serve full course meals to people, to do a full breakfast for people, to do a full lunch for people, and we're able to reach literally almost like over 1,000 people of the types of meals that we served. And so it was just an amazing time of outreach and really us getting beyond our walls, which is really what all reaching out is about. And then also, back in the fall, we had the Fall Festival Palooza, which was just an amazingly huge success. And we were able to reach hundreds and hundreds of new people that came onto our campus, and we were able to feed them, let their kids have a wonderful time, let them get a lot of candy and have just a lot of fun. And so that was just such a highlight. And then lastly, one of the things that Amanda focuses on here is younger adult ministry. And she's been able to form a team, and one of the great fruits of that team and the fruit of us being able to focus on that is that the conference, the Holston Conference that we're a part of, hosts a young adult retreat and a conference every year called Divine Rhythm, which is coming up at the end of this month. And we are having over 25 people go to that. For younger adults.
And the last time we went was 2010. We took 6 people. So it's really exciting that we can get that group together to go.
So just a lot of energy around all sorts of different ages, around all sorts of things that we're doing here. And I think a lot of you feel that energy. A lot of you feel like the best days here at First Broad Street are ahead of us, and a lot of great things are happening. And we're just so thankful and so grateful to be in ministry with you and help lead you in this as we seek to change the world and become disciples of Jesus Christ.
Let's celebrate what God's doing in our church.
All right, thanks, Harrison and Amanda. And let's go ahead and get started with the presentations. And first up will be Mike McIntyre to talk about finance and facilities.
Thank you, Russ. Y'all may think I'm a bad penny because I keep turning back up, but anyway, we obviously had one miracle that we've talked about. That was the Christmas Eve miracle offering, but we had a second miracle in that we ended up, as Mickey reported Sunday morning, in the black for 2014. When I came back to work, and at the end of October, we were $180-some thousand in the red, and I'm sweating the usual situation at the end of the year, but through the help of this staff and through your gracious giving, we were able to end the year up basically in a balanced budget situation. We're really thrilled about that. I want to do a little bit more than Mickey did and give you some information. We had our pledge total was $1,689,000. The amazing thing about this is that it was 103.1% of what was pledged. In my years here, I only remember one time that we've ever been over 100%. So when we were really in need, folks gave more than they pledged. They had situations that put them in positions to do that, and we're so thankful for that. Also, other offerings were $687,000, which was about $97,000 over budget, and is really the highest level of plate offering that we have ever had in the church. And again, we're grateful for that and thankful for that. But your generous giving, along with your staff working very hard to control their costs and use your money wisely, we ended up the year really in really great financial shape. Let me give you just a couple of other things in this. I'm going to skip a couple of things I was going to say because I think we're already behind, aren't we, Russ? But anyway, we ended the year, our working capital at the end of the year was $445,000, and that puts us in pretty good shape going into this year. The working capital is basically the cash on hand that lets us operate. We also, our debt was down to $237,000, and in our designated accounts, we had a total of $2,119,000. Now, most of that's an endowment fund. But that's a great level of funds to have in reserve for most of it for very special things, and we're very, very grateful for that. So overall, we ended the year in good financial position for the church, and I think we're all thankful that that's the case. It lets us have the funds to really do what God's called us to do, and that's the ministries that we're all about. So thank each of you for what your contributions there. Now, the other thing I was just going to talk a second about was the Foundation for the Future campaign and kind of bring you up to date with where we were or where we are at this point on that. We've received pledges of we've received $1,214,000 to do the rather long list of renovations and improvements that we needed to do around the church. The projects that are completed include remodeling the restrooms below the sanctuary, new floor covering for the chapel, hallway, and first floor office wing, replacement of the steeple, which was quite an experience. It was mostly good, although when we couldn't lift part of the thing off because we had a terrible misestimate about how much it weighed and had to go get a much larger crane to pull it off. That got a little scary for a while. So wonder we didn't tip the crane over. We've resurfaced and restriped the parking lot. We've replaced the windows below the sanctuary, although that was done with some endowment money. Thanks to a lot of volunteers, we've not finished, but we certainly paid for the paint and so forth to paint the child care center. We refurbished the fellowship hall, including the new ceiling and the lights and all. So, Wes, are you back there? Show us what we can do with the lights. Yeah. He's going to do a light show for us. So we're going to be all kinds of colors, and he can take it up and down. I think a lot of you probably didn't realize all the capabilities, but we're really at the point that we've got some capabilities to do just a lot of different things on this stage and create a lot of different feelings and environments and help us to worship. And so it's really a great addition. I don't know what color I am right now, but thanks, Wes. I'm purple. I must be Martian or something. Anyway, we have spent to date, we've spent $613,000. We have cash on hand of just a shade over $600,000. Now, really want to take a second to tell you, we started focusing on the Woodyard Center last summer, end of last summer, and we're well underway with that. Now, you may say, I haven't seen anything happening over there, and that's true, but first thing we had to do was get approval from the Historic Zoning Commission to do that, and we've got those approvals. We signed a contract for the construction and replacement of the large cathedral windows, and that's been signed, and Statesville Stained Glass Company is actually making those right now, and they will be at some point coming over and putting those in. It's quite a chore to get the other windows out and get those in. We've also contracted with Armstrong Construction, who's coordinating the rest of the thing. Pella Windows we've signed a contract with them. All of the other windows in that building are really in terrible shape. Pella, but they're also not standard size windows, so all of that has to be custom made, and they're in the process of making those windows, and we'll be replacing them. Campbellsville Industries, who's done both of our steeples, is actually doing all of the exterior work, and we've signed a contract with them to do that. And that work is underway, and it's probably about 10 weeks out before they start. So I would expect within a month we'll start seeing some work over there, and we'll probably have most of that work done in the next 3 to 4 months. I will say one thing, that if you want to put something on your prayer list, please put on your prayer list that as we take some of that old stuff off, that we don't find structural damage underneath it. Obviously, it happened to the steeple, and so there's certainly a little bit of a worry, but we're hoping that we basically can take things off and put the things back in. I think we'll end up with Woodyard Center in great shape, and hopefully we won't have to do much other than do a little painting for the next 35 to 50 years. And I'm not going to worry about it at that point. You may recall that we had several other projects on the original list. Now, I told you we had $600,000. It looks like that Woodyard's going to come in at about $500,000, which is what we projected, unless we find some problems. So we're going to have a little bit left over, but you may remember that when we started that campaign, we said we needed about 1.7, and we actually had pledges of about 1.3, so we're about $400,000 short. So there's some things we're not going to get done. And some of the possibilities are that we really need to paint the exterior of the sanctuary and the office wing. We had on the list to renovate the bathrooms and the kitchens in the parsonage. We wanted to improve our security system. We wanted to paint the kitchen. We wanted to resurface the gym floor in Woodyard. And we wanted to pay down the debt. Now, we're not going to get to do most of that. But I think as we get finished with Woodyard and understand what we have left, with the facilities and the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee and the CLC will be making some decisions about where the rest of that goes. So that's kind of where we are. Want to ask questions now? If any of that, I'll take it. Or if you want to go on.
No, we built in about 5 minutes in between presenters, so we can take a few questions. If somebody has a question for Mike, why don't you just stay here, because I suspect they'll have to do with facilities or finance. And we have some mics here, if you have a question, if you'd wait till a mic comes over to you. Questions on facilities or finance?
Must have been extremely clear or very boring.
All right.
Russ, I don't have a question, but I just want to give a shout out to the staff. They watched their budgets to the nth degree, and they are why we came in the black. So
all right. All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Mike, someone might have the bright idea to bring you back as an interim 35 years from now, so don't speak too soon. Yeah. Next up is values. Hannah Harvey and Amanda Dean are going to share a little bit about our values.
Right.
Welcome.
Great. Thanks, Russ. Well, Hannah and I have the opportunity to share with you tonight what we value here at First Broad Street. We're currently in the midst of a sermon series, called Rooted, What We Value and Why It Matters. And although we're preaching on different values each week, we wanted to share those in full with you tonight. Now, as we do this, know that we can't name every value that we have here as a church. We have tons of values, but we recognize that this congregation holds at large and desires to see us invest in our time, our energy, and our resources in some specific areas. So these values, they continue to come from the listening sessions that I wasn't present at, but I've heard a lot about the congregation having 3 years ago. Before they were called values, they were vision statements. And those vision statements, I've read them. They're a little bit complicated, and they're difficult to remember. If you can quote them, come see me after.
You get a prize.
And we've sought to simplify those because for me, I want to look at a church and I want to know what they value, and I want to be able to read it in a paragraph or less. We're getting clearer, more distinct, and these, we hope, are a distillation of what we've been saying for 3 years now. And they show really what's in the DNA of us here at First Broad Street. So as we clarify them, we're also seeking to align them with our mission of helping people follow Jesus by loving God, growing together, and reaching out. So in many ways, we're articulating what's already been here for a long time, just in a way that's more concise and clear. So with the Bible as our foundation, guided by our reason, tradition, and experience, we seek to live into our values, and we've identified 6 values that we hold here at First Broad Street. Hannah's going to tell you about 3 of them, and then I'll share about the other 3.
And I was reminded specifically of these 3 when I went this past Sunday afternoon to a volunteer training session and appreciation session led by John Rowe, who heads up our student ministries. And first of all, it was just a blessing being there, surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses as the volunteers, and I'm seeing some of them out here, who volunteer for our youngest to our people who are about to graduate and go out on their own and leave. And one of the statistics that John shared with us that just struck me, and it connected so clearly to me with these values that we as a church have been articulating over the past 3 years, and that now we've distilled into these short phrases. He said that of every 5 people who graduate and move on, they go out, they're on their own, of every 5 graduates, only 2 of those remains a lifelong disciple of Christ. Only 2. And of those 2, there are specific factors that play into their choices of whether or not a person remains a lifelong disciple of Christ. And that's what we're about, yes? Amen? Amen, right? For all of us remaining lifelong disciples. He said that 25% of that, of the factor, there are 4 different parts that factor in with these 2 people sticking with Christ. 25% of that is that they have married parents who are committed to Christ. And that plays in so clearly with one of our values of healthy marriages. And one of our statistics is 61% of our church body is married. And I want to thank you for giving me a face with that. Thank you for 3 years and 11 months. So part of this is our service to you all, newlyweds, right? That we're committed to enable couples to have God-centered relationships. That's what we want, God-centered relationships. And encouraging each other in those relationships. And that plays into how we feed our next generation of folks heading out to be disciples of Christ. Another 25% is that those 2 people understand the importance of God and the importance of the church. And that plays in very strongly with our other value of strong families. And when we were very, very specific when we thought of the wording of this, because there are lots of different definitions of families. There are many different caregivers in this room right now. If you're a grandparent, you're a caregiver, right? Sometimes you are the primary caregiver as a grandparent. There's single families, single parents. There are lots of different ways of articulating what family is. But we seek to guide families as they raise children to follow Christ in a changing world. One of the third factors, so 25% strong marriages, 25% healthy marriages, strong families. Another 25% of those people sticking with Christ is the connection with at least one adult who has invested in them. Just one person who is committed to Christ, who shows them what it means, what church means. That it's not just a building that you go to, that it's a relationship with Christ, and that's important, that is so important. And that's why in this description of sharing life, what does sharing life mean? It means that we form intergenerational relationships. It means that every single person in this room, and I can name some of you all as being that person who reached out to me when I was growing up in this church, when I became a Christian as a sophomore in high school. You reached out to me, and you were that person who showed me, and I'm going to start to tear up, you were that person who showed me that Christ is important, that it's vitally important, and that church, what that means, what church means, that it's not a building you come to, that it's a home, and that it's a family. And having those role models in your life is so important. It's part of that 25%. And you all each play a role in those kids who come right through that wall, who are in our preschool area, who are up on the 2nd floor, and in our youth area, in our middle school, and our high school. You all play a vital role in making sure that those 2 of those 5, and let's try and up the percentage, but that those 2 remain lifelong committed disciples of Christ. The final 25% is that they're involved in a place that's teaching them relevant worship, relevant preaching, and I'll turn it on
Yeah,
Amanda,
so
for that.
our other three values, I want to talk about the first one, is powerful worship. And we want to provide an opportunity for God to inspire passionate worship. We know that we don't do that on our own, that it's the Holy Spirit that does that through us. And we know that relevant and reverent worship has to happen in both traditional and contemporary services. So the pastors have tried to be creative and collaborate on sermon development and writing. You may have noticed lately that we share the same titles and scriptures each week. We're also starting to share our notes as we prepare so that our church body is getting the same message each week that we feel God wants us to hear. We're preaching sermons that engage our congregation, equipping them and challenging them for daily life. We have incredible musicians and talent here, and it's amazing to see how we're all ushered into this spirit of worship in this place. And so we value powerful worship here at First Broad Street. We also value experiencing God. Now, we see experiencing God as offering ways for people to grow deeper with God. That can be through discipleship, through spiritual disciplines. We know that we need to be engaged to grow in our personal and our community relationship with Jesus Christ so that we can be who God has created us to be as individuals and as a church. And so those things are Sunday school classes, small groups, retreats. And this week in upcoming service, that's going to be the value that we focus on, is experiencing God. And so Jeff McCord is going to be preaching in contemporary, Margaret Dean is going to be preaching in traditional about what does it mean for us to value the experience of God in this worshiping community. The third thing that we value is faith and action. Now, we preached on faith and action this past week. I was out because I was sick, but I heard it was wonderful, and I listened to the sermons, and it was amazing to see that we value sharing Christ's love through service and speech. We do those things because we believe God has called us to do those, to share. And we think that it's God's desire for us to make room for others. And we do that in many different ways. We do that through missions and service. Many of you are participating in lots of our outreach activities. But we also do that through hospitality. Hospitality is making space for people, and that's what we're doing in hospitality. And so as we think about outreach and faith and action, it's gonna expand your vision or your view of what that might look like. It's not just delivering firewood. It's making sure that somebody who comes in who doesn't have a seat in worship can find a place, or that they have somebody to eat lunch with so they don't have to go home in the afternoon by themselves after church and sit alone and eat a bowl of cereal. Those things are important, and we want our church people to go out of here speaking such positive things about this place that anybody on the street could say, I know I can go to First Broad Street and find a family. I can find a place to fit. They have room for me there. And that's what we value in our faith and action, is that we can serve God by serving others, and that is inside and outside the church, all those areas. So in closing, all these values, the three that Hannah mentioned, the three that I mentioned, they align with our mission of loving God, growing together, and reaching out. In loving God, we experience God. We have powerful worship. In growing together, we have healthy marriages, and we support strong families. And in reaching out, we're committed to sharing life with one another and to moving forward with faith and action. And so we believe that these value statements are clear and concise, and that they really do speak to the things that we value most as a church. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really glad I came tonight because I was involved in writing those vision statements, and I was happy to finally have them explained to me. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
There's a lot of wordsmithing going on, I'll tell you. Lots of drafts.
And I just want to reinforce, those came from all of us. Those weren't things that a group went off in a room and wrote. It was really what we said we want the church to be. So, questions? Again, we have mics we can pass around. Or comments?
Y'all are a quiet crowd tonight. Oh, well, thanks.
Well, can we hear an
Thank
amen?
Wait a minute.
All right.
We need a microphone for Harry. He said you did a good job. So, any members of the CLC, Church Leadership Council, want to add anything? All right. Well, very good. Well, thank you. All right. Well, and we can come back to, open-ended questions about any of the topics, but our final topic of the three tonight is our new church ministry council. And so here to explain that is Harrison.
And so if you have looked at our newsletter for the month of January, on the very front page, you get this describing what our theme is for the next several weeks around the values that were just explained to you. But if you open up to the second page, it talks about our new ministry structure. And so if you're familiar with the way that we have been doing things in the past, we've been structured under what's known as WINGS. And WINGS was an acronym supporting 5 different areas. The W for worship, the I for invite, the N for nurture, the G for grow, and the S for serve. And under those 5 headings, the great majority of the ministries that we do here at First Broad Street were categorized. Over the past several months, we've realized that there are great opportunities for us to further live into our mission of helping people follow Jesus by loving God, growing together, and reaching out. And so Wings, who was led by Lisa Tenser, proposed a plan that would help Wings realign to further live into our mission statement. And so if you recall what you saw in the newsletter, we are now structured under what is known as a church ministry council. So Wings has shifted and realigned to now what's a church ministry council. And the church ministry council has 3 major areas: a loving God team, a growing together team, and a reaching out team. And the great majority of all of our ministries here at First Broad Street fit under one of these teams. And it allows us to do a lot of unique things. First, it allows us to really empower laity. We're a church that values laity's involvement and laity's decision-making. We understand that the smartest people at our church aren't us as staff, but it's you. And when we put all of our heads together, that's when we truly can do some kingdom-sized stuff. That's when we truly can have God-sized dreams and be able to reach those God-sized dreams. So we really wanted to have a structure that empowered laity to help us make decisions and to help us carry out ministries in great and significant ways. And so we feel like this new structure will allow us to do that. The second thing I think it helps us really do is it gets us to where there's less of a hierarchy. And so that's one of the things that it seems like we're criticized for at times, as being a very hierarchical type of organization. But we wanted to make it to where ideas can become hands and feet ministry very quickly. And so when someone has an idea and they're able to bring it to this team, that team is empowered to make that happen. That team is empowered to make that idea turn into reality. And that's something that a lot of churches struggle with, but it's especially something that a lot of large churches struggle with, because there's just so many dynamics, there's so many facets of all that we do here at First Broad Street and all that large membership churches do. It makes it really difficult to do new things. It makes it really difficult to go in new directions and to move away from things that we've done in the past necessarily. But it makes it really hard to do things quickly. And so this new structure helps us with that. It helps us speed up things. It helps us be more creative. It helps us truly be able to reach our mission and of helping people love God and helping people grow closer to Jesus Christ. And so of those 3 teams, a loving God team, growing together team, and reaching out team, there's a staff component team as well as a laity component part that makes up the full team. And they're each led by one of the pastors that are appointed here. So that's myself and Mickey and Amanda. Mickey leading the Loving God team. I'm leading the Growing Together team, and Amanda leading the Reaching Out team. And then also accompanied with them are lay directors, just like if you're familiar with the old ring structure, that there were lay directors with that. And so that puts Cindy Haskins as the lay director for Loving God team. Elise Egan is the lay director for Growing Together team, and Lisa Tenser is the lay director for the Reaching Out team. And then there's also going to be laity components to this that haven't been named because it's just a new thing that we're working on that right now. But these teams together truly I think can change a lot of how we do ministry here at First Broad Street. I think it's going to allow us to truly live into what God wants for us and what God expects out of us as one of the churches of Jesus Christ. And so we have a lot of energy built around this. We think the future here is so bright at First Broad Street that our best days are ahead of us and not behind us. And we feel like this new structure will really help us live into that in great and powerful ways.
All right. Here's a question.
Yep. So Orange is just a type of curriculum that's put out by an Orange is like a publishing house that specifically focuses on curriculum. And so like the Growing Together team has implemented Orange curriculum, and that reaches all age levels, including things like the Jingle Jam was part of the Orange curriculum of doing really family-focused type stuff. And so...
Where's the handheld? Oh, okay.
So if I could add to that, the materials that I've seen from Orange curriculum, I mean, I don't know how many of y'all raised your hands from Jingle Jam, but I mean, if y'all came, you know that you saw Bob Garver in a kilt singing in a Scottish accent about wrapping paper. I mean, where else are you going to see a program about that? It's really dynamic. It was fun. The people who came left saying, when are you doing this again, and can I help with it? Because it looks like so much fun. And you don't always get that with the church play. I mean, I'm so excited about it. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Other questions?
One other thing I want to mention right quick before you go, Pat, is that the CLC, this doesn't replace the CLC. This works in conjunction with the CLC and works under the guidance of the CLC. And so Buddy Bounds, he's not here tonight, he's traveling, is our vice chair on the CLC, and he helps, along with Mike, the executive director, to oversee this and to help keep us focused and help keep us aligned with what the vision and values are here at First Broad Street. So yeah, Pat.
Pat has a question.
There's a one that has to go up. The bottom one has to flip up.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. We're going to move to where we can do things quicker. This is always the dream of any committee, is that it happens quicker. Okay, so I come to one of these teams with this great idea, and the team approves it. And now you've told me the team can then go ahead and implement it, but the last time we tried something like this, it's called money. Will the teams be assigned money? Will these 3 sections be assigned a budget, or will they then go from this to the finance committee? What happens? How do they get money for the programs?
Okay, so money-wise, our budget, which we're still working on for this year, that's apparently something that we do here. So as we're trying to come up with the budget for 2015, all that budget's going to be aligned according to these teams. And so Loving God team will have a budget, which will include all the ministries of Loving God. Growing Together team will have a budget, which includes all the ministries of Growing Together. And all of those budget lines are approved by the CLC. That's where the accountability takes place right there. So does that help at all?
Where's the new money?
So new money is proposed. And so that would, at a level, need to go through CLC because that increases the already proposed or already approved budget if that happens. Yeah, Elise.
Okay. Here you use it. That one's on.
Thank you. Hello? Okay. So the way it was designed was that those individual teams can alter their budgets as long as the overall number doesn't go up. So they have flexibility to work and change their ministries as they feel led within a year, as long as they don't consume extra beyond their budget. So if your idea...
Can they go to CLC if they feel like this is something, can that team go to CLC if this is something that they want?
Yes. So the only time they have to go to CLC is if they need additional funds. If they can do it within their annual budget, then they have the freedom to do as they led. But if they need extra resources, extra money, extra people to get it done, then that's the only time they would have to go to CLC.
Just another thing onto that. But, God did a big miracle here in helping us balance our budget, but the reality is that we have a finite number of resources, and so we do a lot of things as a church. And in order for us to be able to use those resources in the way that God's calling us to, that may mean that this is something we really need to invest in, and we need to let this other thing go for a while. And so those teams will be empowered to decide, we've done this for a while, it's been fruitful, and God's blessed us, but now God's calling us to move in this other direction. And so our hope is that our teams will begin investing deeply in a few ministries rather than very shallowly in tons of ministries, because we all wear ourselves thin, right? I'd like to do some things really, really well rather than a million things just haphazardly. And so that's our hope from this, is that they'd be empowered to work those funds and make them live into those team objectives and goals.
Okay. Vicki, did you want to say something more on that? I knew Jennifer had a question, but okay. Jennifer, let's move on to another question. We can come back if there's more on budgets.
Mine's just a statement. I'm one of the ones that pushed for the Orange curriculum after reading Rick Warren and how excited he was about that. And I understand, I think if I'm right, that there's going to be all the youth and ministers are going to be able to go to the conference this year in Atlanta. And supposedly it is a fantastic.
Right. The program staff that are around our student, children, and preschool ministries are going to be taking a trip down to Atlanta to get conference training for this Orange curriculum, which will expose them to all kinds of different things. Harrison, John, Katie, and Ray, and those four will be going down there to Atlanta.
Okay. All right. Other questions about Church Ministry Council or comments?
There's one somewhere. Where?
Okay.
Darius.
Oh, we have a mic.
Finished doing my year-end report, and I'm very concerned about our attendance. We have 475 people who have not signed the attendance register for 2014. Now, you may say, oh, we're an older congregation. I did not count shut-ins. I didn't count out-of-town people. I didn't count college students who are out of town, but we have 475 who did not sign in. Our morning worship attendance is down. One Sunday we had 99 people at 8:30. And I can very well remember when you had to be here at 10:30 to get a seat at 10:45. Which is not true now. So I urge each of us, when you look around on Sunday morning and you see somebody not here, give them a call. See if there's a real need. Often we get criticized because we don't go to the hospital. We can't go unless we know. And people will say, well, I was in the hospital 2 weeks and nobody came to see me. And my first question is, did you call the church and let them know? Also, we need to Sunday school classes really need to contact your absentees. When I do birthday calls, people say, you're the only one I hear from all year. So I urge each of us to be ambassadors to get the attendance up.
One comment I'd make on that, Darius, thank you for your encouragement, and it really takes all of us at a level. One thing that I would really encourage us to think about, too, is that a great majority of you, when you're here on Sunday mornings, you're worshiping across the hall in the sanctuary. And we're going to be able to do a lot of really unique and great things that we think is really going to help boost that attendance, help bring back a lot of the people. But if you were here in this room at 1045 this past Sunday, we had over 270. So if you got here at 1045 this past Sunday, you didn't get a seat. And you didn't get a seat until halfway through the service because we were still bringing in new seats to be able to sit everybody. So a lot of great things are still really going on.
All right. Other comments or questions on any topic? Yes, John, would you pass that back, please?
All these changes and restructuring, are they developed in-house or are they coming from other sources higher up in the Methodist Church?
I don't know how much higher up in the United Methodist Church they're coming, but I think a lot of what we're doing are considered best practices by a lot of different churches, especially in similar categories to us that are thriving in great ways. But a lot of the new things that you're seeing in place is from this congregation. It's through the intelligence of this congregation. We realize that probably per capita, Kingsport might have some of the best leaders in the world. And so we want to take advantage of that. And a lot of this stuff is truly in-house of a lot of ways that we're doing things. But I think most of what we're doing, we could support using here's other similar situations in which these have been best practices for other churches in our similar situations.
And I would just add that in the next 100 years work, that led to some of the things we talked about earlier, we looked at some existing approaches and things like that, but we tailored it to meet what our congregation needed and the things we value and what we really wanted to accomplish and played to our strengths. So we didn't just plug and play something that somebody else came up with.
Yeah, we realize, I don't think anything that we have here is cookie cutter. I think we realize that God has a unique mission and God has a unique purpose for us here at First Broad Street. And that's unique to every other church in the world, that God has us here for a reason to do something unique and to do something powerful. And I think we live into that in great ways, and we're just continuing to try to live into that in better ways.
Okay. One of the things I admire about this church is we're willing to try something new. If it works, we continue. If it doesn't, we drop it.
Okay. Yeah. Good. John, other comments or questions?
Lynn, back in the back.
Okay. How would you hand that back to Lynn right behind you?
I wanted to sort of address what Bob said. We went through, this is the third reorganization that we've gone through since I've been in this church. One was about 1970, and we added literally hundreds of people. We had the administrative part and committees totaled 130 people. In 1996, Charles Lips led the conference delegation to General Conference. And he came back, the General Conference said, you need to align your ministries with your mission. That's all it said. It didn't give you a cookie cutter thing at all. So in 1997, we did wings. I was chairman of the board then. That's the reason I have a little interest in that, and I appreciated the committee of about 12 or 13 that really aligned our ministries with wings. So I think this is just a natural evolution from that directive. Hey, get your ministries aligned with your mission, and that's what we're doing here, as best I can tell. And I want to salute the Church Leadership Council, which, Elise, how many people are on the Church Leadership Council now?
12 plus the clergy.
12 plus the clergy. So
representing different age demographics.
That's down from 130 in 1970. I just want you all to know that. And as a result of that, they're a lot more agile. lot more agile in making those decisions, and I like the freedom that as long as you're reaching out or can do whatever they want to within their budget. I like that, without having to go back to CLC. I salute the new organization very much so.
Thanks for your comments, Lynn. And the other thing the CLC did was bring into one group things that were being done by finance and trustees and staff parish. So we have one leadership group that understands all the issues and are dealing with them, in an integrated way as opposed to different committees trying to deal with things. So that's the other piece of this. Okay, other questions, comments?
Anything else we've discussed tonight? Any other subject we've talked about? Guess we can open it up to all questions now. I really appreciate your comment about let's try something. If it doesn't work, we'll stop it. And that's something that when Wings came to CLC, Church Leadership Council, with this proposal, they said, we want to look at this in 6 months, and we want to look at it in a year. We want to make sure that this is the right track for us. And so I think we've evolved to know that nothing is perfect the first time around, and as we live into it, we will make it work for us. And so know that it's not necessarily something that's going to be in stone, and that goes for things we've been doing for a while too that worked a while back and they don't anymore, and so we might need to change some of those too. So I appreciate that comment. Very forward thinking there.
Good. All right, anything else? Okay, I'm sure Retta, go ahead.
The job search for executive director and director for every young ministry.
I can speak to the executive director. I'm on that committee. We've spent some time looking at how this new church ministry council and staff alignment will work, and clarified some things about the job responsibilities. We have the committee appointed, and we're ready to get started. And I'll just add one other thing. We already have several names that are coming to us that we believe we have some very, very good candidates.
I'll speak to the director of Forever Young Ministries, and John can speak to this too if he needs to addendum anything. But as you all know, John is in the process of his third retirement, something like that. But he has graciously and really graciously agreed to stay on to help us out until we are able to replace him, which will hopefully be sooner rather than later. But one of the things that I talked about earlier was we're developing a strategy around how best to reach older adults here. And so part of that strategy that we're developing, that John's helping lead us in, is what does a new job description for an older adult minister look like here at First Broad Street, so that we can facilitate to all the needs of older adults and to be able to best minister to them in the best possible way. And so that job description is going to come as a recommendation from that team, and then from there the search will begin as that is approved by CLC. And so that's where we're at with that. So hopefully within, I would say, the next couple of months, the search would have hopefully begun by that point, and we'll know how we're going to be able to move forward with that. And so we give thanks for John's leadership over these years, and and we're thankful that he's going to be able to help continue and help lead us in to fruitful ministry in the future with great things. So thank you. Hey.
I think children and grandbabies trump us, so.
So, in other words, 35 years from now, when Mike comes back for another interim, maybe we can have you drop by too. So, all right. Okay, anything else? All right, of course, I suspect staff and CLC members who are present will hang around if you have questions that you want to ask one-on-one, but we'll call it there. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate the good questions, good input. Let's close with a prayer, please. Let us pray. Gracious God, we thank you so much for all the blessings you have poured out on this church and on this fellowship. We thank you for all the contributions and gifts and service that have been made by many who are in this room who have led us to be the church that we are. And we truly recognize, Lord, that we are blessed to be a blessing. We thank you for what we've received. Show us how to pour out your grace and your love and your message to a world that needs you so much. Be with each person tonight. Keep us safe until we're gathered again. In Jesus' name, amen.